We have already seen how animal welfare science would be at the core of welfare biology. During the last few decades, scientists have increasingly shown interest in evaluating the well-being of animals through the development of welfare assessment methods. Most welfare assessment methods have been focused on animals used by humans. The majority have focused on domesticated animals, although there has also been some research on undomesticated animals. Assessments of animal welfare vary depending on the targeted species and goals of each assessment, but they often include the evaluation of several parameters in areas of health, physiology, and behavior. They are also often supported by examination of how environmental conditions can affect animals in different ways. This plurality of methods makes animal welfare science a very interdisciplinary field. In principle, welfare biology could examine all the aspects related to the well-being of all animals. It would not necessarily have to be focused only on the situation of animals who live outside of direct human control. However, in the case of animals in captivity, the knowledge from ecology and from other fields like wildlife management wouldn't be needed, as the lives of these animals would not be determined by their ecosystemic relations with other animals and with other elements of a particular ecosystem. Rather, their lives and the conditions affecting their lives would be significantly determined by those human beings in control of them. So to assess the situation of animals in captivity, the contributions from standard animal welfare science may be sufficient, but not for animals living in the wild. In order to effectively help them, we need to adequately understand how welfare is affected at the level of an ecosystem. Although welfare assessment methods have usually been designed for captive animals, some attempts have been proposed to assess the welfare of animals living in the wild. Their emphasis has typically been on evaluating the harms caused by human activities, neglecting non-anthropogenic welfare issues suffered by wild animals. But these efforts can be the starting point for developing methods to assess the well-being of wild animals, independently of whether harms are anthropogenic or not. An analysis of the frameworks, approaches, models, criteria, and indicators already proposed by animal welfare scientists may be valuable for creating the foundations of such new welfare assessment methods for animals living outside of human control. This research will have important applications and will help other studies in welfare biology if it is carried out more efficiently. Alternatively, work on the welfare of certain animals in particular can be useful not only because of its potential to improve the situation of those animals, but also to help make progress more generally in the study of the welfare of wild animals. This is because it could help to develop or to establish certain methods of welfare assessment. As we have seen, this work needs advancement. There are other cross-disciplinary fields from which welfare biology could gain useful knowledge. One that comes to mind is conservation biology. We have already seen the difference between the motivations of the two fields. Conservation biology is concerned with the continued existence of natural entities, like ecosystems, populations, or species, rather than with animals themselves as individuals with a well-being. Technically speaking, a distinction is made between conservationism and preservationism, the first referring to the conservation of biological entities for the benefits this will have for future generations of human beings, and the latter for their own sake. However, it is customary today to use the term conservationism in a way that includes both. We also saw that this difference in the field's approaches can lead to conflicts, such as when the killing of animals in certain areas is proposed, for example, because they are not native to those areas or because they are considered to have a negative impact on a certain ecosystem for other reasons. Despite this, there are also common grounds for joint academic work. We considered one of these earlier. We saw that among the different ways we can help animals in the wild, some of them consist in assisting those who are suffering some harm, while others can actually prevent those harms from occurring in the first place, as in the case of vaccination. Another example is the protection of big herbivores like elephants. This is something that conservationists often work to achieve. Those who want to promote the best situation for animals will be interested in attaining this too, because an ecosystem where these animals are present may be better, when we consider the total amount of suffering and well-being in the ecosystem. This is related to something we have already seen. We know that the life history traits of different animal species, especially the ones relevant to the animal's reproductive strategies, can also be relevant to their welfare and their suffering. Animals with high mortality rates in infancy tend to have, on average, harder lives containing more suffering than those with higher survival rates. There are many cases where animals with better life expectancies tend to be those who are very well adapted to living in a specific niche in some area. Many of them are what are often referred to as specialists because they have a harder time surviving in new and changing environments. Conservation biology is often concerned with the conservation of these animals that in many cases are endemic to certain areas. They are not as numerous as generalist animals, who are able to survive in different environments and tend to colonize new areas when the previously existing ecosystems are disrupted. One of the main reasons this happens is because they invest more in having a higher number of offspring, rather than having a small number of offspring with better survival rates. As a result, they are more likely to die when they are very young and have to endure significant hardships on average. This means that when conservationists succeed in the conservation of specialists, they reduce the presence of animals with much lower survival rates, who would have lives with much more suffering. These are clear cases of convergence of the aims of welfare and conservation biology that the general public will also tend to approve of. Also, there are some conservation efforts where much attention is paid to some specific individuals, as when a certain species with only a few members is chosen to be preserved. The goal in this case is to prevent them from dying. Because the same circumstances that typically cause animals to die also cause them to suffer, conservationist research in these cases can provide useful insights concerning what factors can be negative for the animal's well-being. Moreover, the knowledge thus gathered may in some cases be extrapolated to other animals as well. So we can see how there is an important amount of knowledge that may be used both for the sake of biological conservation and for improving the situation of animals. There are conservation scientists who are concerned about the methods of their discipline when they imply harming animals. They have proposed alternative methods that do not cause such harms. This is called compassionate conservation. Its goals are different from those of welfare biology. They are more focused on preventing direct anthropogenic harms while achieving conservationist goals, rather than on actively improving the situation of animals. Nevertheless, scientists working within this perspective are likely to be interested in the methods to assess the welfare of animals in the wild, and possibly also in the conditions affecting the well-being of animals in the wild. This means that their work can also help advance research on welfare biology. In addition to this, those working in compassionate conservation have pointed out that there are cases where factors negatively affecting the well-being of animals can impede the successful achievement of conservationist aims. These can be caused by conservationist actions. Examples of this include harming animals by keeping and breeding them in stressful conditions in captivity. Other harmful interventions include causing discomfort or stress to animals by marking or tracking them in invasive ways or killing animals that threaten the existence of a preferred species. This implies that in order to prevent these kinds of issues, other conservationists would need to consider the welfare of animals. Research on this subject would be similar to welfare biology, and so would also advance that field. Another cross-disciplinary field that has been proposed would aim at combining the knowledge and aims of conservation biology and animal welfare science under the label conservation welfare. This approach may differ from that of compassionate conservation in not having the same focus on the harms caused to animals in conservationist efforts. Conservation welfare could address other issues unrelated to how conservationist interventions affect the well-being of animals. This could include the assessment of the well-being of animals as a result of indirectly anthropogenic or natural harms, when conservation can benefit from it. This knowledge can be very useful for the aims of welfare biology, despite the difference in their ultimate goals. Conservation welfare would be more focused on the conservation, whereas welfare biology has the goal of reducing the harms suffered by animals. What is more, in some cases, it would actually match the kind of work that welfare biology could carry out.